Welcome back to Maker's Journey Workshop. I'm Benjamin Davies, and today we're going to talk about banging out those first few bucks as you begin your blacksmith business. And if you're just starting out and you've been following along any of our projects, you're probably getting close to a point, if you're not there yet, to where you can start selling some of your wares. If you haven't noticed through any of our videos, we're showing you how to make smalls without the power hammers in the background and the big tools. That's just the same way we started. If you're even the slightest bit curious of whether you could start to make some money at this as a side hustle or eventually transitioning into doing this full time, it is the perfect time of the year to dabble and dip your toe in that water. And I'm gonna tell you how today. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and let's get started. So before we go any further, let's talk about where you should be looking to make these first bucks as a blacksmith. Local crafts festivals in schools in your area. I guarantee you can probably find 10 with these within 25 to 50 miles of where you're at. And the booth rent's usually $100 or less. It was $40 or $50 years ago when I started, so $100 seems about fair today. But what if the expiration date's already passed for applications? Give them a call. They have cancellations too and would love to take your money. What if it's a juried booth and they've already had the jury process? Jury shows is a whole different ball game, and it is a problem sometimes. But if you don't ask, you don't get. So for most of these small craft shows, it's not your top tier artists selling things. Sometimes it's local farmers or local farmers markets, people selling honey and things like that. It's kind of a smorgasbord. It's like going to a nice farmer's market. It's not one of your upper echelon art shows, which is perfect because if you're just beginning, you're probably not there yet. At least I know I wasn't. So I guess my rule for that is you don't ask, you don't get. Call. If the worst thing you can hear is no and you go into that expecting that, then it doesn't hurt to call. But if you don't try, then you've got that in the back of your head. And trust me, business of any sort is not for you if you're not at least willing to try. So that's how you get into a show late. It's pretty easy. Doesn't hurt to ask. Always be nice, always be kind, and go from there. In upcoming shows, we're going to compound off of this as we get into shows next year. Shows are a lot of work, but it's a great way to enter the market and get your name out there. Even in a world of social media and internet, it's great practice. It's great experience. We'll go into it more and more in depth over the next year. Making money is not what led me into becoming a blacksmith, but today I'm gonna talk a little bit about that journey and how it finally transitioned me into a business to where I got to leave a job that didn't fulfill me, and I get to do this every day now. So here's a real quick recap of how I eventually found blacksmithing. I played college football at Western Carolina University. I blew my same knee out twice and played my entire senior year on a blown out knee. By the time that season was over, I was done with football. I was lost without football. Lucky enough to find a good friend of mine who was a Vietnam vet who taught me how to do some leather work. He taught me how to do wood carving and eventually led me to blacksmithing. And I really liked forging. So more than anything, forging was therapy for me. After football, I was lost and I was getting ready to start life as an adult and a newlywed, getting ready to start a family. And I'd been dedicated to this thing my entire life since middle school that I thought would continue to be a career for me. It didn't, and I'm glad it wasn't. I love what I get to do today. You know, one of the things that I fell in love with immediately about blacksmithing was just how hard it was, because I couldn't articulate it at that point in my life. But I knew in the back of my mind that things that were hard, that you worked at, usually had a good reward at the end of them. So I knew if I stuck with it, that it eventually would have some kind of payoff. And I wasn't even thinking about money. I just enjoyed it. Finished college, moved to Shelby. My wife and I started our family. That first year, I couldn't even afford a forge. But I eventually got to where I was gifted a forge from my mom. Thanks, Mom. And I started forging. I would have so much fun on my days off, just exploring and playing. And it finally got to a point to where I got to go see my uncle, and he taught me some tips and tricks. And he was mentoring me in a way that I could start to make some smalls without big power hammers and actually go make some money. It hadn't even crossed my mind yet. I'd had one or two orders from friends and family members wanting a knife and things like that. And I just was tickled pink. I thought that was cool. But I didn't realize how drastic of a change that first show would be for me. Stuck in that warehouse without any real plan in sight other than stick my head down and go as fast as I can because it was a production paid job to provide the best for my family. I wasn't really looking into the future. I was just playing whack-a-mole, making sure that I could provide for our family. And they had food on the table and the bills were paid. My mom saw this and knew that I would just kill my body doing what I was doing. And she signed me up for a show. It was in the middle school I grew up in, and it was a little craft show. So I got signed up and I showed up to my first show. And I sold almost $500 worth of stuff. That's around 2011. That was a lot of money for me. It was a real eye opener for me to realize that I could do shows and make some money. Now, I share that story with you not to talk about myself, but it's just that example I have to draw from. And if it wasn't for that foot in my backside, I might not have ever signed up for a show and be where I'm at today. I always think about all the little moments in my life and how they compound and lead you down different ways. And I'm grateful for that. Thanks, Mom, for signing me up for that show. Here's what I recommend for your first booth setup. And the thing that's really exciting about this to me is the first week we started our YouTube channel back in July of 2024. We made our first 4 or 5 YouTubes that week, recorded them at least. It took weeks of editing. And then I also did a show that Saturday. I talk about just making sure, or just using what you got, because that's how we had to start out. You either have 2 options. You can sit around and feel bad for yourself about not having the tool that somebody who is able to execute it flawlessly in the video, or figure out how to make it work with what you got. And that framework has been abundantly helpful for me over the years, knowing that I want to get from here to here. I don't have the tool, but I'm still going to make it work. It is a great mentality to have and a driving force to propel you forward. It's served me well for 15, 16 years now, and I hope you adopt it and it works well for you. So we did that show last summer, and I did it with my buddy Jason. He used to work with us in the shop. He was part-time here for about 2 years, did a bunch of our cutting and grinding, polishing and finishing. Huge help. Jason's now moved on to a job that's a little bit better for him, where he's able to get full-time hours and be around his family more. Couldn't be more happy for Jason. So I got all excited about this show. The show was at Jason's church. He's like, oh yeah, it's going to be a craft show. And we show up. And it's a dog rescue, animal rescue show, to where they have vendors there that are selling animal products for, bowls and dog food and toys and things like that. And there might be a handful of vendors like myself out of about the 20 to 30 vendors they had. Jason didn't realize it. I didn't realize it either. All right, so finishing up our first day with this setup. They did a 6K walk, a water walk, to raise money for a town where they have to walk like that far to get water, dirty water. And it was catered around animals too. They did some rescue today. So for a non-craft show, I think we did about 150, 200 bucks for the show. Not bad, pretty excited. Mr. Jason's up there on the end, right behind that pink lady shirt. So pretty cool. So wrong place, wrong time. Not the best setup, but I took my daughter with me and we still had a pretty fun day, and I made almost $200, which I was not expecting to make. It was in the middle of July, it was hot. But I restricted myself to only using the things that I had. I had an easy up tent that I'd bought almost 15 years ago, and the display that you see right here. That's a pretty rough looking table. That's because it's the table I started with years ago, and as I've grown, my display has changed, but I've used this one as a finished table and a work surface for many years. I've abused this table. It owes me nothing, and it's been great for me, especially using it before at the point I could afford nicer tables. Use what you got. But that wouldn't cut it at a show. You'd get laughed at, so let's fix that. Obviously, this is an oversized sheet, and it hangs off in the floor, which means it's going to create a problem. Let me show you a workaround for that too. Just kind of rolling it up on the back side so I can grab it. Take your spring clip. Now you can see what the clips look like. Here and here. Also now, you have a great way to hide your backstock. And access it at any moment. All right, come back here. Yes, I know it's black. Yes, I know that'll wash out. Hold on. Now your table has a little bit of depth and color to it. You can mess with this, do it like a table runner, any which way. But black on black for metal work, never a great idea. Always washes out. And this is literally how I started. I shared a 10 by 10 booth with my mom with a table on one side. She had a table on the other, and she was selling some Russian tea and everything was just laid out on the table. Not the best way to start, but it's how I started and was able to make that money that day. But let me show you what I did last summer whenever we were making these first 5 videos right here. Yep, you can have those items. Go, make them. And so we made these last summer here, and I'll show you really quick of how we pieced these together. And I used entirely scrap wood. It was wood that was left over shelving when we moved in our shop just a couple of years ago here. And I'm pretty proud of these. And the thing that's great about these is, just got a little stick on it on the back side as I sling stuff out, and I just did a little ledge. And so I can kind of mess with it, control it somewhat. Not too complicated. Easier the better when you're starting. You don't want to have too many friction points in your way that might stop you or hold you up. What's so much better about this display than just having stuff on a table is because on the table you might not see how it functions. It is best if you can display how it will function in the person's house. Now that might seem a little extreme because if you're one of them cheeky fellas, you might say, do I need to drag a grill out and have that? Nah, some stuff you're still going to have to explain. But they're going to be able to see this better than just a pile of noodles sitting on the table, which ironwork sometimes looks like. So let's talk about some of those deficits I had. Like I said, I'd gone into picking groceries and I was in production mode. I was no longer a guy that went to work, clocked in, said hello to everybody, and, you know, looked to socialize as you would throughout the day, as I would as an hourly worker, as a part-time worker like I had been before. I wasn't stressed. I didn't need to take care of anybody but myself. Life had become different for me, and people depended on my paycheck. So I went from somebody who was extroverted and really liked talking to people to someone that was focused and maybe somewhat introverted because I just wanted to pick as many pieces as I could each night to provide for my family. And it showed when I went to shows. I was not great at talking to people. I didn't have the patience for it that I once had. I didn't have the desire. I was very calculated, and I still am to this day with my time. Not much of a small talk person. Let's talk about deep things and moving forward and grand projects. I'm all in. You want to talk about the weather and the price of tea in China? I'm out. It's okay to have deficits. It's even better when you can be critical of yourself and identify them. Here's 2 things that really helped me overcome my discomfort and be able to sell at shows. The first was my mom. She went to that show with me, and she had been running her own business for about 20 years. And now a salon owner-operator. She's a boss. She started her business in the 90s as a single mother with 2 children, 1 special needs and 1 angry boy. In a time before YouTube and a time before you had the opportunity to go sit in front of these speakers or anything like that, because she didn't have that. She didn't have that access. So she would go plug away 12 hours a day, sitting, waiting to do walk-ins. And she slowly figured out how to build her business over time. She's an all-star. She is great with people. Whenever I watch her, it's never selling. It's just introducing the items to people. She's great at it. Me personally, one of my biggest weaknesses still to today is I hate selling. It feels slimy and creepy to me because I don't know how to do it well. And I'm of the mindset, if you like it, buy it. And so that's still a huge deficit of mine. But what I in turn told myself every day when I'd go to set up for these shows, and the mindset that I would get in is, you're going to work today the same you are to pick those grocery pieces. You have a job to do. That job entails talking to people, being uncomfortable. And I would force myself to do it. I don't mind talking, but it's hard. For some people, it's hard. We have our deficits. Either A, work on them like I continue to do, or B, identify and fill those gaps for yourself. You're not meant to be able to do it all. But as a solopreneur starting a business, you got to figure out how to be decent at some level of each part. The concept of, I'll just be so good at my trade that everything will sell itself, was definitely a concept that I believed in. Is a wonderful fairy tale for me, but never came true. Maybe there's people out there like that. That never was me. So, is this the ideal setup? No. And that segues us into our next point of the conversation. Don't lock into perfection. Lock into getting it done and then building off of what you built. Okay? It's never, ever going to be perfect. If you're critical, if you're thirsty, if you're hungry and you want to push further and further each time, you're going to stare in front of that mirror and say, hey, what can I do better? What did I do wrong? And you're going to measure by that person in the mirror if you're smart. That's how I feel for me, because you have to be accountable. You have to be responsible for your successes and your failures. So you continually build off of this. I've had many different displays over the years, and I figured out a few that worked well for me, and we'll share those in the upcoming months. Hey, if you find any of this interesting and you want me to expound upon doing craft shows and festivals, building out a booth, and the do's and don'ts, and being ready and being prepared, and what's helped me over the past 15 years as I've gone from a hobbyist blacksmith to a full-time business that my wife and I both work in every day, post in the comments below, and I will continue to make more videos showing this. If you're just starting out and you don't have any items of your own, any items on my channel, you're welcome to. That's why I made them. I made them for you to be able to replicate, make your own, or copy that identically and go out and figure it out. That's how we learn. We learn from others. We try to imitate their designs. That doesn't mean grow into some artist that's stealing grand work from other people. That means some of these shapes and things that I've shown you are pretty basic, good way to start that you can use without using power tools. And if you've seen any of our original videos, you don't even need an anvil. So $500 obviously isn't really life-changing money, especially in this day and age, and the price of things, I totally get that. But what it did for me was it made me thirsty and opened my eyes to, if I could make this at a small show with 30 or 40 vendors, not artists, not true craftsmen, people just selling what they had to sell, then what could I do at a real show? That was juried and meant intentionally for craftsmen and artists. And that made me thirsty and that made me hungry. And that's what led me to signing up for 5 to 10 shows the following year and more as I grew. If you like learning about this stuff, if you want to know more about this stuff, I'd love to share it with you. Please post in the comments some areas that you're interested in particularly. We might have already thought of them or we might not have thought of them yet. Either way, we're going to share what information we have. Thanks so much for being here and we'll see you next time. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button. See y'all. Oh, there's a table there. There's the anvil there. What are y'all doing? Get out of here. You want to help me clean up?